What could one woman possibly do against an entire German patrol? They thought they'd caught a helpless peasant. They mocked her, humiliated her, ready to finish her off, never realizing who stood before them. She was one of the NKVD's deadliest snipers. 309 confirmed kills. Senior Lieutenant Irina Gromova. And today that number was about to grow. Belgorod region, village of Krasny Yar. Summer, 1938. Irina Gromova was milking cows in a collective farm barn when her life changed forever. She was only 22. A simple face, a long blonde braid down her back, strong working hands. No one in the village knew her secret. 3 years earlier, Irina had been drafted into the army. Commanders quickly noticed her extraordinary eyesight and unshakable calm. At the range, she hit targets at 300 meters without a single miss. Within months, she was sent to Moscow, to the NKVD's special training program. The training was brutal. 24 girls began the course. Only 8 survived it. Irina was the best. Shooting the Mosin rifle with a sniper scope. Camouflage. Forest survival. Hand-to-hand combat. German language. 18 months of relentless training turned a humble milkmaid into a lethal weapon. When she finished, Irina was quietly sent back to her native village, demobilized for health reasons. In truth, she was deep undercover. If war came, she was to stay behind enemy lines, gather intelligence, eliminate officers, and coordinate the local resistance. To everyone else, she was just another farm girl again. Milking cows, cutting hay, collecting ration cards. No one suspected anything. But every night, deep in the forest, Irina trained alone, practicing her aim with the rifle she kept hidden. Every week, she received coded radio messages from Moscow, waiting for the order. She knew war was close. June 22nd, 1941. The day began like any other Sunday. Irina woke up at 5 a.m., went to milk the cows. Warm summer air, the smell of freshly cut grass, birds singing in the bushes, peace for the last time. At noon, a motorcyclist from the district burst into the village. He gathered everyone by the council building and read the government announcement. Germany had invaded the Soviet Union. The war had begun. The crowd froze. Women cried. Men smoked in silence. Children watched, confused. By evening, 70 men from the village were mobilized and marched to the front. 3 days later, Irina received a coded message. Stay in position.
Away occupation.
Establish contact when possible. Begin elimination operations. Moscow expected the Germans to reach Belgorod within 2 or 3 months. The front collapsed in 5 weeks. Early August, German planes roared overhead, bombing the railway, the bridge, the district center. Krasny Yar was too small to matter, for now. On August 10th, exhausted, wounded Red Army soldiers passed through, retreating. Villagers gave them bread and milk. Their commander, a major with his head bandaged, warned the locals. The Germans will be here in 2 days. Evacuate while you can. Most refused. Where would they go? Their homes, livestock, fields, everything was here. The elders said, "We'll survive. Germans are people too, not beasts." They couldn't have been more wrong. Irina stayed. She hid her rifle, radio, and NKVD papers in a forest cache, then put on a faded old dress, tied her hair in a kerchief, and became an ordinary village woman again. Waiting. August 12, 1941. The Germans came at dawn, 3 trucks, 2 motorcycles with machine guns, a staff car. About 50 soldiers. They spread out on the village square, raised the swastika flag. Their commander, SS Hauptmann Kurt Steiner, tall and polished in his perfect uniform, spoke through a local translator. This village is now territory of the Third Reich. Curfew, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Any disobedience, execution. Aid to partisans, execution of the entire family. Sabotage, execution of 10 hostages. Irina stood among the crowd, eyes lowered, hands clutching her headscarf, outwardly fearful, inwardly burning. She memorized faces, ranks, weapons, positions, a professional intelligence officer at work. Steiner took over the house of the village chairman for his headquarters. Soldiers occupied the school and the club, evicting families. The peaceful village became a German garrison overnight. For the first few days, things seemed calm. The occupiers seized food, livestock, metal tools, but no killings yet. Irina kept milking the cows. The Germans demanded 50 liters of milk a day. Failure meant punishment. A week later, the killings began. SS Obersturmführer Walter Kruger brought a list of communists and activists. 10 people were arrested overnight. At dawn, they were executed in front of everyone. Among them, Irina's childhood teacher, Pyotr Semyonovich. The village froze in horror. The Germans had shown who ruled now. Irina said nothing. But that night, she opened her cache in the forest and loaded her rifle. The traitorous policeman Semyon Kovalyov, once the collective farms groom, had become a servant of the occupiers. He beat his fellow villagers, humiliated them, and made a show of loyalty to the new masters. Everyone despised him, but everyone feared him. He had power. Irina endured. She knew it was too early to act. She had to wait, study enemy dispositions, and find allies. At night, she slipped into the forest, checked her cache, and transmitted intelligence by radio. Moscow acknowledged the reports but ordered patience. September brought harsher trials. The Germans began rounding up young people for forced labor in the Reich. 5 to 10 people taken each week, loaded into freight cars, driven away to an unknown fate. Few ever returned. Irina's name ended up on a deportation list. She was 25, healthy, hardworking, exactly the kind the Reich wanted. But she could not leave. Her mission kept her here, so she lied. She pretended to be tubercular, coughing blood, biting her tongue to simulate weakness, wasting herself on purpose. In a week, she lost 10 kilograms. She refused food and looked ill. A German doctor examined her, frowned, and crossed her name off the transport manifest. The Reich did not want the sick. The ruse worked. Irina stayed and kept working but kept watching, noting officers, their habits, patrol routes. Moscow prepared operations to remove key targets. October 1941, Irina received her first combat order: eliminate the Gestapo agent Kruger. He patrolled the surrounding villages daily, hunting partisans and communists, always in a car with a single escort. Irina spent 3 days preparing. She chose an ambush site on a wooded road, zeroed her rifle, mapped an escape route. On October 23rd, at 3 p.m., Kruger's car came into view. One shot shattered the windshield and entered the Gestapo man's skull. The car rolled into the ditch. The guard leapt out, grabbed his submachine gun. A second shot and he fell. Irina crawled to the wreck, took Kruger's papers, his ID, a map of German unit positions, a list of agents, then vanished into the trees. An hour later, the Germans found the bodies. They sealed the village, conducted brutal searches, beat 10 people, and executed 3 elderly men as a warning. They found no trace of the killer. Irina was back at the farm, milking cows when soldiers ransacked her hut. They found nothing. Her rifle lay hidden in the forest cache. November, December, January, Irina removed 7 more German officers and policemen. She acted cleanly, quickly, and without leaving a trail. Each assassination shook the surrounding villages, but there were no proofs. The Germans grew afraid. The invincible Reich was losing officers to the hand of an invisible marksman. Moscow sent a radiogram of thanks. The intelligence Irina provided aided Soviet planning for the counteroffensive near Moscow. She was awarded the Order of the Red Banner in absentia, yet she continued to live the life of a simple milkmaid. Spring 1942 brought change. A new commandant arrived, SS Standartenführer Erich von Salzburg, an experienced counterintelligence specialist and partisan hunter. He vowed to find the sniper. Irina knew the risks. Too many precise strikes, too many operations. Von Salzburg is no fool. He'll compile suspects and begin checking people. She made a decision. The von Salzburg problem must be destroyed in a single operation. That meant sacrificing her cover. After the strike, she would have to join the partisans. Irina trained for a month. She learned von Salzburg's routines, the sentry placements, the shift schedules. Every minute of the plan was mapped. Everything was ready on April 29th. The operation was to take place on April 30th, 1942, but at dawn a German patrol arrived with orders to find and seize the female sniper. Someone had betrayed her. The traitor was Kovalyov. At midday the patrol came for her. Irina was milking a cow in the stall when rough voices reached her ears. She turned and saw 6 German soldiers and SS Untersturmführer Karl Becker framed in the doorway. Kovalyov stood behind them. "Are you Gromova?" Becker asked in German. Kovalyov translated. "I am," she said, dropping her eyes and pretending fear. "Served in the Red Army?" Becker continued. "Served? Demobilized a year ago for health? Can you shoot?" "Trained, but I'm a poor shot. My eyesight is bad," she lied. Becker sneered, stepped closer, grabbed her by the chin and tilted her face up. "You lie, Russian swine. You're a sniper. You killed our officers." He slapped her across the face. Irina fell into the straw. The traitorous policeman Semyon Kovalyov, once the kolkhoz groom, now served the occupiers. He beat the villagers, mocked them, and flaunted his loyalty to the new masters. Everyone despised him, but no one dared to act. He had power. Irina endured. She knew it was too early to move. She needed to wait, map enemy positions, and find allies. At night, she slipped into the forest, checked her cache, and sent reports by radio. The center thanked her for the intelligence and ordered patience. September brought harsher tests. The Germans began deporting young people to labor in the Reich. 5 to 10 taken every week, loaded into freight wagons and driven away. Few came back. Irina's name ended up on a list. She was 25, healthy, strong, exactly what the Reich wanted. But she could not leave, her mission kept her here. So she schemed. She pretended to have tuberculosis, coughing up blood, biting her tongue to feign weakness, wasting away on purpose. In a week she lost 10 kilos and refused food. A German doctor examined her, frowned, and crossed her name off the transport list. The Reich didn't want the sick. The plan worked. Irina remained, kept working and kept watching, noting officers' habits, patrol routes. The center prepared operations to eliminate key targets. October 1941. Irina received her first combat order, eliminate the Gestapo agent Kruger. He patrolled the villages daily, hunting partisans and communists, always traveling in a car with one escort. Irina prepared for 3 days. She picked an ambush on a forest road, zeroed her rifle, planned the exit route. On October 23rd at 3 p.m., Kruger's car came into view. One shot shattered the windshield and entered the Gestapo man's skull. The car slid into a ditch. The escort leapt out, grabbed his submachine gun. A second shot, the guard fell. Irina crawled to the wreck, took Kruger's papers, IDs, a map of German unit dispositions, a list of agents, and vanished into the trees. An hour later, the Germans found the bodies. They sealed the village, searched everyone, beat 10 people, and executed 3 elderly men as an example. But they found no trace of the killer. Irina was at the farm, milking cows when soldiers ransacked her hut. They discovered nothing. Her rifle lay hidden in the forest cache. November, December, January. Irina eliminated 7 more German officers and policemen. She acted precisely, swiftly, and left no trace. Each killing shook neighboring villages, but no proof surfaced. The Germans began to fear that an invisible hand was taking their officers. The center sent a radiogram of thanks. Irina's intelligence had helped Soviet planning for the counteroffensive near Moscow. She was awarded the Order of the Red Banner in absentia, yet she continued to live as a simple milkmaid. Spring 1942 brought change. A new commandant arrived, SS Standartenführer Erich von Salzburg, an experienced counterintelligence officer and partisan hunter. He vowed to find the sniper. Irina knew the risk. Too many precise strikes, too many operations. Von Salzburg is no fool. He will compile suspects and begin checking people. She decided the von Salzburg problem had to be solved in a single operation. but that meant sacrificing her cover and then joining the partisans. She trained for a month. She studied von Salzburg's routine, sentry placements, and shift schedules. Every minute of the plan was mapped. All was set by April 29th. The operation was to take place on April 30th, 1942, but at dawn a German patrol arrived with orders to find and seize the female sniper. Someone had betrayed her. The traitor was Kovalyov. At midday the patrol came for her. Irina was milking a cow in the stall when rough voices reached her. She turned. 6 German soldiers and SS Untersturmführer Karl Becker stood in the doorway. Kovalyov trailed behind them. "Are you Gromova?" Becker asked in German. Kovalyov translated. "Yes," she said, lowering her eyes and pretending fear. "Served in the Red Army?" he asked. "Demobilized a year ago for health reasons? Can you shoot?" "Trained, but I'm a poor shot. My eyesight is weak," she lied. Becker sneered, stepped closer, grabbed her chin and tilted her head up. "You lie, Russian swine. You're a sniper. You've killed our officers." He struck her across the face. Irina fell into the straw. Soldiers seized her arms, hauled her up and pressed her against the wall. Becker produced a whip. "Will you speak, or shall we make you?" he hissed. "I have nothing to say. I don't know anything." The whip cracked through the air and struck her back. Irina bit her lip, giving no sound. A second lash. The third. Her dress split across the back and blood showed. "Confess, you work for the Bolsheviks," Becker demanded. "No." Becker nodded to the soldiers. They dragged Irina outside. The whole garrison gathered on the square. Von Salzburg stood on the commandant's steps, watching. They forced Irina to her knees in the middle of the square. Becker paced before her, cracking the whip. "You Russian Untermenschen, subhumans. Did you think you could resist the Great Reich?" he said in German. Kovalyov translated. "This woman is a terrorist. She has killed German soldiers. She will die now so everyone can see what happens to enemies of the Führer." The villagers stood motionless. Women wept. Old men turned away. No one dared intervene. Von Salzburg descended the steps, crouched before Irina, and looked into her eyes. "You are very brave," he said in Russian, nearly without an accent. "Or very foolish. Tell me, where is your rifle? Where is the radio? Who are your contacts? I will give you a quick death." "A bullet to the back of the head," he implied. "You will not suffer. Refuse and I will hand you to the Gestapo. They will torture you for weeks." Irina stayed silent, staring at von Salzburg with hatred. Inside, she made her decision. This was the end. They had discovered her. There was no rescue, but she could take enemies with her. A sentry's Mauser hung behind him, only 2 meters away. If she lunged, grabbed it, and fired in time, the chances were slim, but better to die fighting than under torture. She thought of her life. Peaceful days before the war, laughter while cutting hay, her mother who had been shot by the Germans in the first month of occupation, her brother who fell near Moscow, comrades from the NKVD who died behind enemy lines. All those deaths demanded vengeance. "For the motherland," she whispered. Von Salzburg didn't hear. "What did you say?" he asked. Irina repeated it louder. "For the motherland, for Stalin," and sprang. The movement was instant. Irina leapt up, shoved von Salzburg aside, and lunged for the sentry. He didn't react in time. He expected anything but an attack from a bound prisoner. Irina struck his shoulder, he staggered. She snatched his Mauser K98. Her hands knew that weapon. At NKVD courses they had trained on captured arms. The first shot, the bullet entered Becker's head. He didn't even have time to show surprise. The second shot, the guard with the stolen rifle dropped with a shattered chest. The third shot hit Kovalyov as he tried to flee, a bullet in the back. The fourth shot felled a soldier reaching for his pistol. The fifth hit another man. 5 seconds. 5 shots, 5 corpses. The square erupted. German soldiers lunged for their weapons. Villagers threw themselves to the ground.
Von Salzburg barked orders.
Irina reloaded from a slain soldier's magazine. She was no longer pretending to be a frightened peasant. She was what she truly was. A senior NKVD lieutenant, a sniper with 300 confirmed kills. Sixth shot. Seventh. Eighth. Germans fell one by one. Irina fired with unreal accuracy. Each bullet found its mark. But ammunition ran low, and there were dozens of enemy troops. She had to break out. Irina made for the nearest house. Bullets whistled past. One grazed her shoulder, but she hardly felt it. She reached the corner, reloaded with magazines taken from a dead soldier. Germans opened fire with a machine gun. The house wall splintered. Irina rolled behind the corner and shot the gunner. He fell. The machine stuttered and went silent. Von Salzburg formed his men into a line and ordered an advance. 20 armed soldiers versus one woman with a rifle. Irina moved from house to house, firing on the run, using every cover. The Germans could not locate her. A shot from here, then from there. One officer recognized the shooting style and shouted to von Salzburg, "This is a professional, a trained sniper." Von Salzburg finally understood whom they had captured. She was no mere peasant who'd briefly served. She was Soviet Special Forces. His arrogance vanished. "Encircle her. Take her alive," he yelled. But Irina didn't intend to be captured alive. She ran for the village edge. Ahead, the forest, her cache, freedom. Only 50 meters remained. The Germans blocked the way. 8 soldiers formed a line between her and the trees. She stopped. Her rifle held only a few rounds. Her back and shoulder bled, strength waning. She remembered the oath taken in NKVD service. To serve the motherland to the last breath, never surrender, die but complete the mission. Irina looked at the sky, a clear May day. Far away the war thundered. Soviet troops fought for every meter. Here, in this small village, she fought too. And then she understood the mission was done. She had eliminated scores of German officers, delivered priceless intelligence, disrupted enemy plans, and proved the Soviet people would not break. 309 confirmed kills. Today she had added 15. A worthy tally for a simple milkmaid. Irina raised the rifle. Last cartridges, last battle. "For the motherland!" she cried and charged. She walked toward the Germans upright, rifle at her shoulder, gaze calm, step steady, as if they were targets on a shooting range rather than men preparing to kill her. The Germans froze in disbelief. They had expected her to run, to hide, maybe to beg for mercy, not to charge head-on into a line of 8 armed men. A shot. The first soldier dropped. Another. The second. A third. Panic broke their formation. Then came the storm of return fire. Bullets sliced the air. One struck her thigh, but she didn't fall, just staggered forward, refusing to stop. 3 more steps, another shot. The 4th German fell. The rifle clicked empty. She hurled it into a soldier's face, snatched the peasant knife from her apron pocket. A simple 15-centimeter blade, enough. She lunged. Steel slid under ribs, straight into a heart. He collapsed. She grabbed his MP40, turned, fired a burst at point-blank range. 6th down. 7th. The 8th tried to flee. She cut him down with the last bullets. The line was broken. The forest lay open ahead, but her body was failing. 3 wounds, blood loss, exhaustion. The air burned in her lungs. 30 meters to safety now felt like a mile. Behind her, Standartenführer von Salzburg regrouped his men, ordering them to flank and intercept. She forced herself forward, step by step. Blood blurred her vision. 20 meters. A machine gun ripped the air beside her. She fell, rolled, got back up. 15 meters. Another burst. A bullet tore through her arm. The submachine gun slipped from her grasp. She left it and ran on. 10 meters. Von Salzburg and his men burst from behind a barn, firing as they ran. The ground erupted with bullets. 5 meters. With a final burst of strength, Irina dove into the thick brush at the forest's edge. Branches whipped her face, but she didn't stop. The Germans crashed into the trees behind her, shouting, "Surround the forest! Block every path! She's wounded! She won't get far!" von Salzburg barked. But he didn't know what she knew. Irina had trained in this forest for 2 years. Every ravine, every path, every hollow was her ally. And just 300 meters ahead lay her hidden cache. She crawled, leaving a dark trail of blood on the moss. Her breath came ragged, her vision dimming. Then she saw it, the old oak split by lightning. Her hands, trembling but certain, found the familiar roots. Beneath them lay a waterproof bundle, her real gear, a Mosin rifle with a scope, 3 clips of ammunition, a radio, NKVD papers, medical kit. She unwrapped it all with reverence. The Mosin felt like an extension of her hands, her true companion. With it, she had already sent 309 enemies into the dirt. She bandaged her wounds, injected morphine. The pain faded, her mind cleared. German voices grew closer, less than 100 meters away. Irina loaded her rifle, positioned herself behind the oak, and peered through the scope. The world snapped into perfect clarity. This was her realm. The first German stepped cautiously through the trees, rifle raised. Irina's finger tightened. Crack! He fell. The others dove for cover, spraying bullets into the oak. Bark exploded around her, but the thick trunk held firm. She rolled into a nearby hollow, 3 meters away, and fired again. Another down.
Von Salzburg finali Unterstot.
This wasn't a wounded woman on the run. This was a hunter, a professional killer, a Soviet sniper who had turned the forest into her battlefield. He ordered a retreat and called for reinforcements. Surround the woods. Wait for dawn. No one goes in at night. But Irina had no intention of waiting for dawn. She reached for her radio and sent a short message. Identity compromised. In forest 2 kilometers north of Krasny Yar. Request partisan support. 10 minutes later, a crackling reply. Partisan detachment Kotovsky, 15 kilometers out. Moving to assist. Hold until midnight. Irina checked her watch. 17:30. She had to hold for 6.5 hours. German voices echoed through the forest, the bark of dogs, the grind of engines. Von Salzburg was bringing every man he had, nearly 100 soldiers, against one woman. But this one woman was worth the company. From then on, the forest became hell for the Germans. Irina shifted positions every few minutes, firing from different angles, making it seem like an entire guerrilla unit was hidden among the trees. 18:00, 2 Germans down. 19:00, 3 more. 20:00, darkness fell. She changed into the black outfit from her cache, blending into the shadows. 21:00, patrol advanced with torches. Irina shot the torchbearers. The forest swallowed itself in darkness. 22:00, von Salzburg, desperate, ordered the forest set ablaze. Soldiers doused the edges with gasoline and lit it. Flames crawled inward. Smoke thickened. Irina retreated toward the swamp. She knew the fire couldn't pass through the wet ground. 23:00. She reached the marsh, collapsed onto a mound, rebandaged her wounds. The morphine was nearly gone. Pain returned like fire under her skin. But she was alive, and she wasn't done yet. The ghost sniper of the swamp. A faint sound echoed in the distance. Bursts of gunfire shouted orders, the hollow thud of grenades. The partisans had come. The Kotovsky brigade struck the Germans from behind, 60 fighters against 100 enemy soldiers. But surprise was on their side. Irina heard the fight and began crawling toward the sound. She had to reach her comrades. Half an hour later, she dragged herself out of the swamp. The battle still raged. Germans holding the line, partisans pressing harder with every minute. Then she saw him, von Salzburg, retreating toward the village, hiding behind his men, desperate to save his own skin. Irina raised her rifle. 1 bullet left. For 100 meters. Smoke, darkness, a moving target, an impossible shot. But Senior Lieutenant Irina Gromova of the NKVD hadn't earned her reputation as one of the best Soviet snipers for nothing. She exhaled slowly, held her breath, and found von Salzburg in the crosshairs, squeezed the trigger. A single shot cracked through the night. Von Salzburg stumbled, fell, and never rose again. The Germans faltered. Their commander was dead. Panic rippled through the ranks. They turned and ran. The partisans charged forward, storming the village behind them. They freed the villagers, seized weapon depots, and set the German command post ablaze. Major Gromov, commander of the partisan unit, no relation to Irina, though sharing her name, found her near the swamp, leaning weakly against a tree. Her rifle rested on her knees, eyes closed. "Comrade Senior Lieutenant," he called. Irina opened her eyes, tried to stand, but her strength failed. "Reporting," she rasped. "Senior Lieutenant of the NKVD, Gromova Irina Petrovna. Mission accomplished. 19 radio transmissions sent with intelligence data. Destroyed?" She paused, counting silently. 324 enemy soldiers and officers. Major Gromov helped her to her feet. "Come, comrade. You need a doctor." The partisans carried Irina from the forest, laid her on a wagon, and covered her with a blanket. Villagers gathered to see them off. They looked at the simple milkmaid they had known for years, now revealed as a hero. Old Marfa Ivanovna crossed herself. "Holy Mother! Who would have thought our little Irina was like that?" Irina managed a faint smile through the pain. "No one was supposed to know, Grandma. That's the job." Before dawn, the partisans disappeared back into the woods, taking with them captured weapons, German documents, and the wounded sniper of the NKVD. Behind them, the German-occupied buildings burned to the ground. 37 bodies in enemy uniforms lay in the ruins. 324 confirmed kills, her tally still rising. Major Gromov led the men eastward, deeper into the forest. The Germans would regroup soon, hungry for revenge over von Salzburg's death and the destruction of their garrison. They had to move, find a new base, and wait for contact with the Red Army. Irina was placed in a dugout beneath an old oak. Nurse Lydia dressed her wounds, gave her herbal tea. Despite the blood loss, Irina never complained, only asked to keep her rifle within reach. Through the night, explosions thundered in the woods. German patrols scoured the area, firing flares and probing the dark. The partisans struck back, ambushing scouts, mining forest paths, destroying lone vehicles. By dawn, silence returned. The German survivors fled, whispering of a Russian witch haunting the swamp. In the partisan camp, spirits were high. The villagers were safe, the enemy crushed. A day later, Irina was handed over to a group of Red Army scouts moving through the marshes to the front line. Her story spread quickly from division headquarters to the front command. A milkmaid turned NKVD sniper, who single-handedly took down dozens of enemies, endured the impossible, and never broke. For her courage, Irina Gromova received the Medal for Bravery, the Order of the Red Banner, and a promotion to captain. But to her, the greatest reward was simpler: the lives she saved and the freedom of her village. At the award ceremony, she spoke few but unforgettable words. "I am a Soviet soldier. I remain loyal to my oath. I fight for my homeland, for peace in our homes. Let every fascist know. The Soviet people cannot be conquered. We will never break." After the war, Captain Irina Gromova returned to Krasny Yar, to the same cottage, the same cows, the same fields. Only now, everyone knew who she really was: the ghost sniper of the swamp, the woman who fought like an army of her own. Spring 1946. The war had ended, but its echoes clung to the land like morning fog. Captain Irina Gromova lived quietly in Krasny Yar once again. The fields were green, the barns rebuilt, and laughter had returned to the village. But in her dreams, gunfire still cracked, and the swamp still whispered her name. She woke early each morning, milked the cows, fixed fences, helped with the harvest. Villagers often greeted her with respect, some with awe, but Irina avoided praise. She preferred silence, work, and the rhythm of ordinary life. Yet even peace carried its burdens. Many of the men who had gone to war never came back. The women ran the fields, repaired roofs, and taught children to write. Irina often helped widows mend farm tools or carry hay, never mentioning that she too carried a wound that would never heal. At night, she sometimes walked beyond the edge of the village, where the forest began. The oak under which her dugout once lay still stood, massive, scarred by shrapnel. Beneath its roots rested the unmarked graves of 3 fallen partisans. She would leave bread and wildflowers there, whispering, "We kept our oath." One evening, a truck stopped by her house. From it stepped a young officer in a crisp uniform. He saluted. "Captain Gromova?" "Yes. I bring orders from the district command. They request your presence in Tver. Your experience is needed." Irina hesitated. She had sworn never to hold a rifle again, but she understood what duty meant. 2 days later, she boarded the truck. The city bore deep scars of war. Buildings pocked with bullet holes, windows patched with cardboard. At headquarters, she was met by Colonel Rodan, a stern man with gray at his temples. "Comrade Gromova," he said, motioning her to sit. "You were one of the finest snipers in the partisan front. Your reports were exemplary. We are forming a special training unit for female recruits, those who lost families, homes, everything. They need an instructor, someone who knows what war costs." Irina looked at him steadily. "You want me to teach them to kill? To survive?" Rodan replied quietly. "To defend what's left." She said nothing for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll do it." The training camp stood on the outskirts of Tver, beside a frozen river. 22 girls arrived, most not older than 19. Their faces were pale, eyes filled with fear and determination. The first week was the hardest. They stumbled, missed targets, wept at night. Some fainted from the cold. But Irina was patient. She taught them not just to shoot, but to think, to breathe, to listen, to vanish. "A sniper doesn't pull the trigger," she would say. "She decides the moment when the world must hold its breath." She told them nothing about her own missions, but they guessed. They whispered about the ghost of the swamp, the sniper who never missed. By the end of the 3rd month, the girls were silent, focused, disciplined. Their rifles became part of them. When the colonel came for inspection, every target at the range was pierced dead center. He turned to Irina. "You've done the impossible." Irina only shook her head. "I've given them what they'll need when peace breaks again. Because it always does." Years passed. The world changed. Borders shifted. Soldiers came home and built new lives. Irina remained in service until 1952, then retired back to Krasny Yar. The villagers greeted her with flowers and songs. She smiled but carried the same quiet eyes that had seen too much. Her medals lay in a wooden box under her bed, wrapped in linen. She rarely spoke of the war, even when journalists came to write about heroes of the front. "I did my job," she would say simply. "Others did more." In spring, she tended her garden. In winter, she taught children to read. Sometimes young veterans came to visit asking for advice. She would pour tea, listen, and finally tell them, "War teaches nothing but loss. If you must fight, fight so that your children never have to." One summer evening, an officer in his 40s arrived from Moscow. His name was Major Belov. He brought a file, yellowed, marked, "Top Secret." "Comrade Captain," he said, "we found this in the archives. It's your last operation report, the one from 1944. The intelligence you transmitted led to the liberation of 3 villages and the destruction of a German supply line. The command wants to know if you wish to add anything before it's entered into the museum record." Irina took the folder, leafed through the pages, and smiled faintly. "Add this," she said. "There were no heroes in that forest, only people who refused to die quietly." Belov looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Understood." When she passed away years later, the villagers buried her beneath the great oak in the forest, beside the men she once fought with. The rifle she'd carried through the war lay across her grave, wrapped in a red banner. Every year on Victory Day, children came with flowers. They had heard stories of a milkmaid turned soldier, of the woman who faced 100 men alone, of the ghost sniper of the swamp. And when the wind moved through the trees, It sounded almost like her voice, calm and unbroken. I am a Soviet soldier. I remain loyal to my oath.